A very warm welcome to one and all who has joined us today. I'm Tasneem and I am the moderator for the session. First of all, thank you so much for joining us on a Saturday morning. Funds India welcomes you to the webinar, and our today's topic of discussion is equity market, what's next? I think it is very important to discuss on equity markets at this juncture. So here we have Mr. Arun, the head of research team, who will be hosting this meeting. So before we start the session, I would like to let you know all that you can put your questions in the chat box once Mr. Arun is done with the session. Uh, so I welcome Mr. Arun to start the webinar. Over to you, Arun.
Thanks, Tasneem.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning. Very good morning. And thank you so much for joining us, especially on a Saturday morning. So I'll jump straight into today's topic. It's a very interesting topic, which is equity markets. What next? I'm sure this will be the question, which is probably the top of the mind question for almost all of us at this current juncture. But if you really think, if you take a step back and think through this question, this is almost a question that keeps coming perennially, right? A month back, we had the same question. 3 months back, we had the same question. A year back, 2 years back. So this is a question that personally for me from this side and as well as an investor, this is a question that always uh, keeps being asked. And for me also, this is a question that always keeps coming. So the whole idea is that instead of giving a particular precise answer as to what will happen to equity markets with the current juncture, the broad idea was because this is a question that we'll have to answer again after 1 month, again after 1 year, again after 10 years. The idea was that can we give you a thinking framework which will let you answer this question not just for today's context, but also maybe 1 year down the line, 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line. So is there a broad way to handle this question? Because this is a very important question for our investing journeys, and most of us will have at least a 30, 40, 50 year journey with the equity market. So the overall context is that can we set a broad framework to solve this question for a very long period of time? So with that very ambitious agenda, let me jump on to the presentation. So I'll start with a very simple, mundane decision making that we have to do almost every day. Going to our offices. I don't know how many of you are back, but at least we are still partially still work from home. So hoping that a lot of you are going back to office. The simple decision that we have to make in the morning is when do I actually start so that I reach my office on time. Normally if you look at it, so in my particular case, if I take a car to go to office, roughly it takes around 30 minutes to 40 minutes to go to my office. So this is the rough period. So I know that over the next 1 year, 95% of the times I will roughly take around 30 to 40 minutes depending on the day-to-day traffic condition. So what that simply means is that if my office is at 9:30, I might want to start somewhere close to around 8:45, 8:50, so that I will comfortably reach my office in time. Now, I'm sure all of us will have something around this. Now, this is the normal expectation, and this is how we decide as to when to start to office. Now, we also know that there will be those not so normal times, which will definitely happen. Like some days we might get pulled over by a cop for, let's say, crossing the signal without realizing that the red is already on. Or in Chennai, 3 years back there was sorry, not 3 years back, a few years back there was a massive flood, and a lot of us got stuck in traffic. And this photo that you see below is exactly the road that I take to office every day. And one fine day, 2 3 years back, the road just caved in. Thankfully that's not my car, but it was someone else's car. But yeah, but these are events which you can't predict, or you do not know what can happen. But broadly we know that the not so normal things also happen, but that is fine. That is how life goes on. But broadly, it is not that I will expect to get caught by a cop or to have to see something like what we see in the below picture happen to me. So it is not that we will expect a not so normal event and then let's say start 3 hours before so that I am early. So that is not the way we do, right? We normally start with the normal expectation. Now so the broad idea is in everything that we usually deal in life, we have a normal expectation and we know that there will be a not so normal expectation that happens. We know that there are, let's say, few percentage of the times it will happen, but that is fine. But broadly, we understand the normal expectation and build our decisions around it. Now the key question was, what if we apply the same approach to investing, like in terms of what will happen to markets next? What if we have a similar approach where we say, what should I normally expect from the markets, and what are the not so normal scenarios which happened in the past, and based on that, can I get a fair sense of what happens to the market so that my expectations are set right? Now, how do we get this? Obviously, we are dealing with the future, so there is no way in which none of us would be able to precisely predict the future. But the good part is that we also have a 40-year past, which can give us a lot of clues on what is normal and what has been the not so normal part of equity investing. Okay. So broadly, the way most of us get sold into equities or how we enter into equities, we are shown a chart similar to this, where we see that on the long run, the Sensex, this is the Nifty 50, which is almost from 1990 till today, close to around 30 years. We have seen that roughly the Nifty 50 made around 14% returns. Funds would have made higher returns. Broadly, the longer run returns are a mirror of your underlying profit growth of company. So as long as Indian entrepreneurs grow their company, grow their profits, the equity markets will continue to go. But if, let's say, tomorrow, for some reason over the next 10, 20 years, if India goes for a toss and our entrepreneurs are not doing great, we might not get great returns. So fundamentally, the call for equities is very simple, that we are betting on entrepreneurs, we are betting on companies. Over the long run, whatever is the underlying profit growth, we will more or less make returns which are very, very close to that. Now, this is how most of us see this kind of a chart, maybe on a 5-year basis or a 10-year basis or a 15-year basis, and we get in. So the expectation is set on the long run, but unfortunately, none of us live really. I mean, we while long run is fine, but the way we actually live our life is in the short run. Like, we need to make decisions on a 6-month basis, on a 1-year basis, or 10 years is in all practical purposes almost 10 1-year periods, or probably 20 6-month periods. So how about being more realistic and setting an expectation around what should we expect over the next 1 year, which is our question that we started off with. So just like how we did our everyday travel requirement, let's also figure out saying, how do I figure out saying what is the time, just like how in the morning we had to figure out saying at what time I will have to start my journey, we will also figure out saying how do we figure out what is the overall market volatility which happened in the last 40 years. Now what happens is that what we basically done is we took a period of close to around 40 years. Okay, this is the 40-year period for Sensex, and we just asked a simple question: what is supposed to be normal in terms of equity market expectation? Now, obviously, if the markets are going up, none of us are worried, because it's fine if it goes 10% or 5% or 15% or 20%. Nobody is complaining. But the real problem happens only when the market starts to fall, right? So the what we did was we went back 40 years and we looked at each and every year, and then we said, and then we found out saying, what is the maximum decline that happened during the year, that is within the year. So for example, in 2020, while the overall markets from Jan 1st to December 31st ended with positive return of almost close to 16% for the Sensex and maybe around 14% for the Nifty. But within the year, all of us know that we had a huge fall of close to around 38%. So like that, we went and looked at each and every one of the years, saying what is the intra-year fall that happened. So this is the decline that happens. Now, the first and foremost, most important thing that glares at you is, while This is the chart that all of us see and enter markets. This is the most important chart because this shows why the longer run returns happen. Because if it was so easy, then everybody would have just entered. That would be the only asset class in the world. But the reason why a lot of us get scared out of this is basically because almost each and every year you find that there is a significant volatility that happens. Now, the first most important point that you see is that almost every year there is a decline happening inevitably. Okay, there's no year in which you have not had a temporary short-term decline. And the point is that what is the normal range for these declines? The normal range is between 10 to 20%. On average, it's around 21% for the last 40 years. But roughly, if you look at it, the black bars represent the periods where the Sensex had fallen close to around 10 to 20%. So the first and most important conclusion that you can get from the graph is that a 10 to 20% decline in equities is as common as all of our birthdays, right? So it happens every year, almost every year. There was only 3 out of 41 years where the decline was less than 10%. So one happened in 84, one happened in 14, one happened in 17. Otherwise, 21 it's still not yet done with. So this is like only for the last 2-month period. So net there were only 3 years where the decline was less than 10%. So what this essentially means is that for all of us, a 10 to 20% decline is nothing to majorly worry about. In the sense like that's what has happened for the last 40 years. So it is natural that over the next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, this should be a simple part of the expectation. So let's put this into perspective, right? When we say 10 to 20%, somehow we might not get the exact perspective around it. So right now, Sensex is close to around 50,000 levels. So let's say, what does a 10 to 20% intra-year decline really mean? So which means that if Sensex can go between, let's say, it can go down to 45,000, or it can even go down up to 40,000. This is normal, because if you go by history, if you go by the 40-year history, it says that if Sensex, let's say, during the course of the year goes down to 45 or 40,000, now at that point in time, there'll obviously some reason because of which it goes down, and there'll be a lot of scary news on the newspapers, on the media, and all that. But now that we have seen the past data, we know that a 45,000 to 40,000 level is normal, because it's not Arun's conclusion, or it is not Funds India's conclusion. It is just pure data. We are not even doing any mathematical science around it. It's a simple thing. So anybody who is invested into equities, if Sensex tomorrow goes down to 45,000 to 40,000, our first response should be that, hey, this is normal. This is what 40 years has told us. And so this is absolutely nothing to panic about, because this is exactly what we signed up for. Now, the most important point is, let us just translate that into our portfolios. Now, obviously, all of you will have different portfolio sizes. So let's say, argument's sake, let's say for an example, let's say somebody has a 50 lakh portfolio, out of which that person is 50% equity and 50% debt. Then it means that 50% in equity will round about come to around 25 lakhs. So a 10 to 20% will mean that around 2.5 lakhs to 5 lakhs at an overall portfolio of 50 lakhs should be considered as normal. Okay, so this is the first normal expectation that we set. So this is simply the same as the deciding saying, when do I start to my office? Now the next part is that there are also the not so normal years, right? While these definitely happen, the good part is that they are not very frequent. Okay, now what we have seen is that sometimes the 10 to 20% normal decline becomes a little more steeper and goes up to 30% fall. Now these are few of the instances, and it roughly takes around 1 to 2 years for the recovery, for the entire fall and the recovery to happen. Depends. There are also periods where it recovered in 5 months, periods where it recovered in 11 months, there are period where it recovered in 2 years, and 3 years was also one of the long period between 10 and 13. So again, so the rough way to expect for these 20 to 30% declines based on history is that once every 3 to 5 years, there will be a temporary 20 to 30% decline. So this is the second expectation, which is a part of the not so normal expectation. Now coming to the not so normal expectation, which most of us really worry about, which is that what if there is a very, very sharp fall, which is any fall between 30 to 60%. From whatever we have seen in the history, these kind of falls have definitely happened, right? So the roughly, if you look at the numbers, almost once every 7 to 10 years, it is natural that there will be one or two major declines which happen between 30 to 60%. Usually it is one fall every 7 to 10 years, but and the fall can be anywhere between 30 to 60%. And roughly it takes around 1 to 3 years for the entire fall and the recovery. But in the worst case, it's taken almost close to 5 years for the whole fall and recovery to happen, which means, but the key point is that markets have always recovered and gone on to scale higher numbers in the longer run. Okay, so this is the part of the not so normal expectation. Now, what does this mean in terms of Sensex? If that once in a 7-10 year kind of a correction were to happen, the Sensex can fall up to 20,000 to 35,000 levels. Temporary fall, which is assuming that if there is a 30% fall, it can go up to 35,000. If there is a 60% fall, it can go up to 20,000. If there is a 50% fall, it can go up to 25,000. Now, we are not saying that this will happen or not, but it is just to say that in the last 40 years, every 7 to 10 years, some fall like this happens. Now, as to what causes that is a different topic, but this is just to broadly set the context. Now, you also need to see how this not so normal temporary decline looks like in your portfolio. But for the same 50 lakh portfolio, our normal expectation was that a 2.5 lakh to 5 lakh decline should be normal, should be okay. At the same time, once in 7 to 10 years, there might also be a sharp fall where the 25 lakh portfolio can go down up to, let's say, 30%, which can be close to around 7.5 lakhs, or maybe up to 60%, which can be roughly close to around 15 lakhs. So this is how the broad expectations should be set. Now you can also do the same numbers for your portfolio, so that roughly you have a sense of how has the past behaved in equity markets, and what can possibly happen on a normal basis, and what can possibly happen on a not so normal basis in terms of my portfolio, and are we mentally prepared for that? Okay, so that's the first point. So let's broadly summarize the broad expectation. First important point is that a temporary decline happens almost every year, right? There is not a single year in which there has not been a temporary fall, right? And then a 10 to 20% temporary fall is a given. So that is perfect equity market behavior. So if Sensex moves to 40,000 or 45,000, it is perfect behavior. There is absolutely, the reasons will be different for different years, but this is a given. This is 40 years data, and not just for India. Even if you look at any equity market, even if it is US, they will also have similar declines, but probably the range of declines will slightly differ based on whichever is the market that we're seeing. But this is a common template for equity markets across the world. And 20 to 30% decline should be expected once in 3 to 5 years, and a 30 to 60% decline should be expected once every 7 to 20. It's not like a precise science, but broadly, it is just like how we drive back to our office every day morning. This is how we set the broad range of expectation when it comes to equity markets. Now the next question is, now that we have set the whole expectations, how do we build a plan around it? Okay, so there are two broad ways to approach this, right? So the first approach is that this is an approach which all of us start with. Even I started with this approach, that just like how we all want to reduce weight with some magical solution. We don't want to go to gym. We don't want to do any crazy diets, but yet we want to have something which is comfortable for us, and yet we want to become healthy. So this is something that happens in most of our choices, that we want an easier solution where we don't need to take the pain. So all of us start with the notion that let me get because we see the longer run returns. We want to make the longer run returns, but can it be made without any pain? In the sense, like, the 10 to 20% is still okay, but why should I take up the 30 to 60% fall? Can't someone let me know before that happens so that I will just move out of it? And hence, broadly, I will have a plan which will mean that I will stay in equities. I will take the 10-20% fall. But whenever the 10-20% fall is going to become a 30 to 60% fall, somebody will let me know. I will move out of it. And then at 50%, 60% fall, I'll get back in. And then I'll make phenomenal money, right? Now, this is a perfect, this is absolutely normal. So even I used to think, and I think a lot of us will think that this is the easier approach. And if you really step back and then think about it, right, this is the exact reason why we always keep asking equity markets what next, because if it is going up, we are really not worried. But the real worry is, what if it crashes? What if tomorrow there is a crash starting and then markets goes down by another 30%, 40% or 50%? So this is a real big worry, because if something like that is happening, we need to take the money out. So while this is obviously going to be the best approach, we have one small problem. The real problem is that there is absolutely nobody who seems to have cracked this approach, and nobody ever has been able to time the markets consistently, which is basically get out before the market crash and get in before the market crash. Now, this is very contradictory to what most of us start believing, because we always think somebody out there knows, somebody should know, somebody on the TV might help us, some market expert who's or some fund manager or some expert who's spent a lot of time in the markets will be able to know. This is very, very counterintuitive, saying that why should somebody go through that 30 to 60%? Why is that pain necessary? So let me give you some evidence in terms of why this is so difficult. Now, this is a chart which is one of my favorite charts, which I also shared during the previous presentation. A guy called Jay Boorman just tracked all the major predictions from some major market experts, which includes fund managers, which includes a few popular economists, and so on and so forth. You can see that right from 2012, everybody has been calling for a market crash. So the real crash is dead. Prepare for massive market meltdown. You can read any of this. It will be like scary. And they have been continuing to do it for a very long time. So this again shows that to predict a crash is easy, in the sense like some fine day this will come true. But the whole idea is nobody can exactly tell you when. So if you listen to somebody in 2012, you would have missed the entire rally. Now, JP Morgan went one step ahead, and then they did an interesting analysis where they said, hey, had you listened to these guys? Now, the problem with these guys is that most of these experts will keep on telling that the markets will fall, the markets will fall, the markets will fall. And one fine day when they fall, they become popular, they call for interviews, they write a book, and then they become very, very popular for their prediction. And everybody looks for what they say. They said, so JP Morgan said, hey, but the real challenge was that these guys keep predicting for a long time. So what they did was, let me go back to the first time they predicted any crash, and then assume that some investor listened to them and took the entire money out of equity and put it on bond. What is the opportunity cost, or what is the a loss that they would have made relative to what is the amount that they could have made had they held to their original equity portfolios? You can roughly find that close to around 35% to 65% was the a loss in terms of the actual money that they could have made. This was all like legendary guys like Carl Icahn, John Hussman, George Soros, and all. John Hussman was known to predict the previous two bubbles. So all of these guys have a track record saying they predicted the last two bubbles and all that. So all these are like very, very popular names. JP Morgan has essentially taken the Sachin Tendulkars of the investing, with Sachin Tendulkars and Virender Sehwags of the investing world, and then looked at their prediction. So the first thing this tells us is that predicting a market crash, right? When will a 30% or 50% crash comes is very, very difficult, because if these are really, really intelligent, they are probably 100 times more intelligent than me for sure. Like if they are finding it difficult, why is it that they are finding it difficult? Now, most of you might not understand or might not appreciate these names, but here is a common name which all of us know. Raghuram Rajan, again, he was known for warning the earlier bubble. So he warned something on 2014. I also have this. This is a very pet story for me because one of our clients actually sent us this article and he got completely panicky because he had huge respect for Raghuram Rajan. He came out of the markets. Then after that, he was out of the markets for 2-3 years. But then we all know what happened. Post that, there was a significant rally, and by 2017 there was a phenomenal rally in mid and small caps. So the client had basically was not able to participate at all, and post that by 3 years you are like, okay, maybe this doesn't work, and then you again get back in at the wrong time, and then again, so the overall experience got spoiled because, like, I mean, I'm not saying that Raghuram Rajan doesn't know. He's obviously far intelligent, but the real challenge is that the markets are a lot more complex. It's not as simple as telling that there are XYZ reasons and hence the market should fall. So the same thing happened in 2020 fall. You find that a lot of these guys had predicted. In fact, after the market recovery initially started, be it Ray Dalio, who's supposed to be the god of hedge funds, he ran the largest hedge fund in the global world. And again, Stanley Druckenmiller is one of the most popular hedge fund managers. Now, all these guys are like very big guys, and you can see all the headlines. So this is a template which keeps repeating again and again. And this is what John Templeton had to say, who's one of the most legendary investors. He said, in my entire 50-year career, I do not know of anybody who has done it successfully and consistently. So there's no bell which rings to signal that, hey, you should get out of the markets right now and you should get into the markets precisely when the markets have fallen. Now, again, you might say that, okay, this is data and all that is fine, but why does this intuitively happen? There's also one more glaring thing which is staring at us each and every day, which is a simple fact that, hey, who is the world's most popular investor, which is Warren Buffett. Now, if he has made money over the long run, obviously he should know something, right? Because he's made money, he's the top 10 richest guy in the world, so he must be able to avoid these pains at least, right? But look at what Warren Buffett had to go through. He had gone through a 37% fall in 87. In 89-90, he went through a 37% fall. In 2000, he went through a 50% fall. In 2007-9, he went through again a 51%. So even Buffett had to net go through all these falls. And just think about it, right? If somebody could do it, he or she would be far more popular than Buffett, who couldn't do this. And Buffett also says that unless and until you can watch your stock holding decline by 50% without becoming panic stricken, you should not be in the stock market. So what really happens is that, now just think about it, right? Logically, if there was somebody who could do it, he or she would have been much more popular than Buffett. Now, the fact that there's nobody out there who can come and then say that I have predicted all these markets and I have made disproportionately higher returns than all of them, we are not hearing any of those names because nobody says that I will be able to predict the timing of when to get in and when to get out. The other logical way to look at it is look at the mutual fund. Their only role is to make money for us in the longer run. Now they have all the resources. Let's take HDFC AMC for an example. They make close to around 1,200 crores in profits last year. Now just think about it. These are people who are full day sitting in the markets analyzing it. They, for 1,200 crores, you can afford anything, any software, you can hire any person in the world that you want, and this is just 1 year's profits, right? Now just think about it. On one end, you and I are also trying to figure out when the markets will fall, and they are also trying to, let's say they attempt to do it with 1,200 crores and with 30 years of experience and 20 years in the business. They would have obviously figured it out if there was a simple rule or somebody who, if somebody knew it, they would have definitely got access to it. So the point is, there is a lot of simple evidence which is staring at us that this is a very difficult endeavor to do, and there's nobody who's done it, because if somebody has done it, everybody will get to know about him, because he or she will become a very they'll become like god of the markets. Now this is a very interesting video. There's this guy called Udayan Mukherjee, who was a CNBC anchor and who was one of the topmost market anchors in India, and almost he had interviewed every possible market expert on the in the planet, and in India for sure. Now he was asked saying what is the market outlook for the next 1 year. Now he comes about and then says that there is no way in which somebody could predict the markets. And if he says that because he built his entire life around trying to ask people as to what would happen, and he honestly confesses saying that please don't believe that anybody out there knows. The only way to make money is to give it a long time frame and to build on earnings growth. So as long as the companies grow their profits, you will make money over the long run. And as long as you don't enter at the wrong valuation, which is insanely high valuations, you will definitely make money over the long run. So that was a very interesting video where somebody who built his entire career asking people on what will happen, trying to predict, honestly confesses saying that. So this is a video that you can watch on YouTube. It's called you can say Udayan Mukherjee and then Honest Confession. So this is a phenomenal video that again goes to show that if somebody who's daily interviewing all the experts has finally, and that too, which is completely contrary to what he did for his entire life, accepts that, then there's a lot of truth to it. Again, what happens when you take this approach is also that every year there's a 10-15% fall that happens, and there is also a bad news that happens. Now the problem is, once you take this forecast approach where you have to move out, every 10 to 20% fall looks very dangerous. Like you're worried saying that, hey, if I don't move out, can this become the 30%, 40% or a 50% fall? So there are a lot of chances for mistakes, because every year, every month you have to take decisions. The more the number of complex decisions that we have to make, the more is the probability that we might go wrong. So one fine day at a 20% fall, you might move out and you might not enter back, and it might end up being a normal fall rather than the not so normal fall. Or someday you might miss out interpreting the normal fall, and it might become a not so normal, a larger fall. And then you might want to move out, and then just like what happened during COVID, a lot of us might actually miss out on the sharp rally, because the rallies are always happening before the economic recovery actually happens. So it's a very, very complex decision to take. And let's think about it. If we have to do this consistently for the next 30-40 years, and there's nobody who has done globally, and even people with money, people who have put time, people with very, very intelligent people. So which means that fundamentally it's a very, very complex thing to crack. I'm not saying that we shouldn't attempt it, but the whole idea is that we should also accept the fact that there is a lot of evidence staring at us that this is a very, very difficult endeavor to do. So this is one of the uh, world's most popular fund managers globally. He says that he funnily says that far more money has been lost by investors trying to prepare for corrections or trying to anticipate corrections than has been lost in the actual corrections themselves. So this comes to the second approach. Now, what do we do? So one is, we know that it's very difficult to predict. While we might try and attempt to do it, we also have evidence overwhelmingly staring at us that there's a good chance that we might not be able to predict these large falls, and sometimes we might also get caught in this falls. So the whole idea is, how do we deal with it? So the way we approach is very simple, that it is very difficult to, while we might say that there will definitely, we know that there will definitely be a 30, 40, 50% fall over the next 10 years. The real challenge is, when will it happen, what day will it happen, is very, very difficult, and how long it will go is too difficult for us to call. So the way we think about it, once we accept this, right, then the whole approach changes. Then the approach goes back to saying that, okay, so let's assume I do not know, I know that this will happen, but I also know that I don't know when. Then how can we build my portfolio so that I will be able to endure this particular pain, and my portfolio can survive, and over the long run, despite this, can give me solid returns over the long run. So this is a very simple and a humble approach, that I know that there'll be falls which will happen, but how do I build a portfolio which can endure this? So the whole idea is, I know it will happen, but I do not know when it will happen, right? So now again the question is, hey, the what if I invest right now and then the market falls? Then obviously I am not going to make returns, right, for the next 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. The boring simple truth is that over the long, why you might have seen that people harp over long run, over long run, over long run. The simple idea is that time, or a 10-year or a 15-year or a 20-year time frame is a long enough time frame which can solve most of the problems which happens when you enter at the wrong time. So what we did was, we went back from 1990, we took all the major falls, and then we assumed that if some investor was unlucky that he entered just before the fall, just one day before the fall, he entered, but he just left the portfolio like that. And then he checked the portfolio returns maybe few days back. So October 90, he invested the amount, and then the Sensex fell 40% immediately after he invested. Then still when he checks his return now, it's around 12%. So this goes to show that even if you entered at the worst time, in the long run, you still are not as bad as you thought. Then the next in 1992, you still make around 9%. So this is Sensex return. So broadly, there's also dividends added to it. So roughly, you can assume that it will be 2% more. So this is again, this will be plus around 10.5%. Again, 94, you made close to 9.5. So adding dividends, you would have made around 11% more. So just think about it. All the worst days you invested, you still made more than around 12% to 14% if you add back the dividends. Now here you have the dividends add back number, and we also took a few funds. In 2000, had you entered, the market dropped 56% after you invested. Still, you are currently making 16% or 17% had you invested in a few of the good funds. Now, these are funds which have been underperforming for the last 5-10 years. So it's not like we took the best. We took a very skewed set of funds. Otherwise, if you are, we can also look at the Nifty 50 TRA where you made close to 12%. So you can broadly see that whenever you invest and you give a long time frame, you see that the long run returns are still decent. So the most important point is that, and but in reality, it's not that we have a bulk amount and then our entire life we are going to invest one shot, right? We normally invest it in a gradual manner. So we did something very interesting which will just blow your mind away. So what we did was we said, if somebody was the worst ever market timer possible, what he or she will do is every month he will save 10,000 a month, and then what will happen is that he'll keep saving 10,000 and he won't invest in the markets. And just the day before the market crashes by more than 20%, he'll invest the entire amount. Again, he'll keep saving 10,000 every month. He won't even put it in debt. He'll keep it as cash. And then before the market again crashes by 20%, he'll again put the day before the market crashes, which means that every time the market falls, he will put one day before the market falls and he will capture the entire decline. We said, what will happen to the worst market timer for the last 10 years? Still, we were surprised that he has made close to around 11.5% return in the Nifty 50. And in the last 15 years, close to around 10%. Last 20 years, he's made close to around 12%. So this is like, if you are the worst market timer ever, and you put only on the days when markets were going to fall, right, which is the day before that, you still ended up making 12% return. And if you put it in a fund, you made up close to around 15% return, which is very, very decent, assuming the fact that you are the worst market timer. Now, what if somebody didn't do all this just monthly, every month he simply invested? Your returns jump to close to 15% and 18%, 19% in the case of funds. So all this means is that it gives us a fundamental truth. Now, you might ask, why does this happen? Why does time solve most of the problem? It's simple, because over the long run, you can see the last column, right? The last column is where the profits are growing for major companies in India. You can see what is the stock price return. You will broadly see both these numbers are very, very close to each other. So the underlying truth is that over the long run, the profit growth will be reflected in your stock prices. But the only problem is, in the shorter run, the valuations might move up or down, which will lead to all this volatility. So if you look at the good part about the long run is valuations component will become very low. So this is a chart which shows the Nifty returns. So Nifty returns for 2000 to 2010 was close to around 15%, out of which the earnings growth was 14%. So you can see the valuations contribution is only around 0.7%. That's not a problem. So again, you see the valuations contribution is less than 1%. It made 6% returns in 2000 to 2010 to 20, because the earnings growth was lower at 6%. So roughly, the broad philosophy is that over the next 1 to 3 years, predominant part of your returns will come because of earnings growth along with valuations moving up or down. But on the long run, the valuation component diminishes. This will hardly impact your overall returns, but it will only be the earnings growth. So that's the major reason why all the numbers look phenomenal, even if you were the worst market timer. If you had the superpower to stay patient, and if you had a long time frame, just like how we do for real estate and all the real estate as an asset class, the idea is that you can end up with phenomenal performance over the long run. So now obviously we know that the basic idea is that if we give time, then it can solve a lot of the problem. We don't need to worry about what the experts are saying when the market will crash and all that. But again, this is behaviorally too difficult for us to pull off. So how do we build a solution which can allow you to stay with your portfolios for a long run? Because if you stay with your portfolios for 5 years, 6 years, or 10 years, more or less we are reasonably sure that all of you will get a good experience. But the idea is that how can we make you, or how can all of us stay with our portfolios for a long run? Now, obviously 100% equity is practically not feasible. So the step one that we which we would ask all of you would be that assume that you cannot predict a crash. Okay, now we might attempt, but let's say we start with the assumption that we cannot predict the crash, which means that we'll have to add debt to our portfolio. Why? Because debt is always stable. It will give you reasonably inflation plus kind of a return, but it won't be volatile. Now, what is the advantage of adding debt? You can see that as you add debt, so this is like the gray bar is 100% equity, the reddish bar is 70% equity, this is yellow is 50%, and the lighter gray is 30% equities. So the moment you add debt to it, the remaining is debt. The moment you add, you can see that you are able to suppress the volatility. So based on whatever is the volatility that you are okay to handle, you can add more debt. Obviously it will also lead to slightly lower returns, but that's fine, because finally you'll have to survive the portfolio over the long run. So that's the whole idea of adding debt, because it will reduce the amount of volatility on a year-to-year basis. And also in the worst case crisis, let's say a 2008 crash of 60% for a 50% equity portfolio comes down to close to around sorry, this is a 70% portfolio, comes down to close to around 40%. If you're a 50% equity portfolio, it comes down to around 27. So you can reduce the degree of declines by adding, instead of trying to predict it, one of the easier way to do it is to add debt to it. Okay, so this is the first broad thing. And a quick thumb rule that I would suggest to all of you is that obviously we do not plan for a travel each and every day assuming the worst case, right? So it's not like every day I start 5 hours before to my office thinking that, hey, what if there is something going wrong? We normally say that, okay, usually it takes 30 to 40 minutes. Maybe I'll give a 5-minute leeway. I'll start 45 minutes before. So in that sense, a rough thumb rule can be that just assume saying, what is a rough number of, what is a rough temporary loss that you can take up? So let's say you say, I'm okay to see up to a 10 lakh temporary loss is okay. So I know sometimes it might exceed, but 10 lakhs is fine. Then you can multiply that by 3, which is approximately 30 lakhs. That can be a rough number for your overall equity allocation. This is assuming that you will be okay with a 33% fall at some point in time, which will obviously be temporary, but it will happen over a 1-2 year period over the next 10 years. So a rough thumb rule is simple. You ask yourself, what is the rough loss that you are mentally willing to take, and you won't panic out of it. And then whatever is the number, you multiply by 3. And this is a very rough thumb rule. Obviously, there can be nuances to it, which we can handle on a case-to-case basis. But this should be a rough way where you can know that obviously you based on your risk profile, you can plus or minus that. But let's say if I have 10 lakhs, which is the temporary loss that I can take, you multiply by 3, up to 30 lakhs should be a very good way to think about how much should be your equity allocation based on how much decline you can take. The second thing we have realized is that if you rebalance it back every year, so let's say you decide on a 50% equity, 50% debt, times when equity markets do really well, the 50% becomes 60%. And so at that point in time, if you rebalance it back, where you do some profit booking and rebalance that 10% back to debt, we've seen that if you consistently do it over a period of 7 to 10 years, you end up easily making 0.5% to 1.5% more on your annualized returns over the long. So this is the simplest way to improve your results. So start with an asset allocation, rebalance it every year. And the third part we have seen is that not every part of the market gets impacted equally. Okay. So we've seen that at some point in time, there are particular segments. So in 2000, it was IT sector, which got disproportionately impacted. Similarly, in 2008, it was the infra pack, which got disproportionately impacted, while pharma and FMCG were not obviously they also fell, but the impact was not to the extent which happened in infra stocks. So what we've realized is that if you combine together different combinations, you can also reduce the overall impact during a decline. So what we have done is we have a strategy called 5-finger strategy, where we put together 5 different styles of investing, which is quality, value, blend or growth at reasonable price, mid and small cap, and then global. So let's say India is not doing well, there can be the global portion with support. Within Indian markets, not so value and contrarian didn't do well for the last 5 years, but right now in the last 6 months, they've been doing really well. Mid and small caps didn't do well till 2000, almost from 18 till the March of this year, March of last year. Then they've now started to perform reasonably well. So both mid and small cap and value baskets are still very reasonable in valuations. So we are not finding too much of valuation risk there. The global, again, we can find several other companies in other countries where you can also remove the risk only associated with India. So we found that when you combine all these together, that also lets you to reduce your overall decline. So, and debt, again, we have a 3 bucket framework where we predominantly stick to all the shorter requirements, we stick to liquid, and all the medium term requirements, we stick to 100% AAA products. And if required, you can take slightly higher risks with maybe 80-90% AAA products, or taking some bit of duration risk. So this is our debt. So again, the whole idea is, can we diversify across different strategies? So if you only do these 3, that is, you do your asset allocation, reduce your volatility, and 2, you do the rebalancing, which can improve your returns and also reduce your volatility. And 3, if you combine all these styles together, which can further suppress your volatility, you are more or less sorted, and this will give you a very, very, very good experience. Now, how can we improve further on it? Now, technically, if you stop at this point, you will have a great portfolio experience over the next 5-10 years. But can we add some more value to you? Can we add 2 more steps to you? So we add one more step, that we have realized that almost all the market falls are followed by a recovery. So as long as you believe that Indian entrepreneurs who are unbelievably smart, despite all the problems that we have in our country, they've been doing extremely well. It's if you simply believe in that call and you see the past history, that every red is followed by a green, which is the market upside. The broad call is that whenever markets fall, it's a super opportunity for us to invest. So what we can do is that if you are having a 50% equity, 50% debt portfolio, you can demarket a portion of your debt portfolio. You can say that, hey, I might not be able to predict the fall, but the point is, I know that during a fall, it's a phenomenal place to make money, because in March, think about it, had you invested some amount, whatever amount that you put from debt to equity would have given you close to around 100% return, which is almost like in debt right now, you're getting only 5%. So just think about the multiplier effect that a move like that can give. So broadly, if the call is that markets, whenever it falls, will eventually recover, we can put a plan saying that out of my, let's say I have 1 crore portfolio, 50 lakhs in equity, 50 lakhs in debt. You can say that I will demarcate 30 lakhs of my debt, so that I want to make use of opportunity as and when, once every 7 to 10 years, whenever there's a large market fall, I want to deploy my money. So, and then you put a plan right now. So the plan can roughly be like at levels, at Sensex 40,000, if it cuts, then I'll move 20%. So out of my 100 rupees, which I've demarcated for this portion, first 20 rupees I'll put it, because I do not know whether there'll be further fall, because I don't want to put the entire 100 at 20. Then if it falls to 30%, then you can put another. Now you might say, why don't I wait till 50% fall and put the entire 100? The problem is we don't know, because this time it looked like the COVID crisis could probably go to 50 or 60, but it stopped at 40 and then it quickly reversed. So the idea is that we do not know, but the point is we also want to participate. So that 20% you put 20% of your 20 rupees, at 30% you put the next 30 rupees, which is totally 50 is deployed. And at 40% you put another 40 rupees, and the last 10 rupees you deploy at 50%. Why are we keeping only 10 rupees for 50? Because 50 is a very, very rare event, and hopefully we have to take the opportunity at 40% level, because even at 40 to recover, it's almost an 80% upside. So which is why we had written a blog simply saying that whenever market falls 40%, to recover it requires close to 76 to 80% upside. So if you simply bet on that it will recover, you will make phenomenal money. So it's as simple math that can help you make money. So this is something that if you put in place right now, instead of trying to predict the markets, this can make you take advantage of the market, provided you have a slightly longer time frame. So the last part is, while we have told you that it's very difficult to predict the bubble markets and all that, because we have built in a system which is okay, that you can still handle the volatility. We also have seen that we have studied all the past bubbles, and we have seen that at extreme conditions, while we might not be able to exactly time the markets, there are strategies where you can slightly reduce your equity risk. So we can move to funds which are called balanced advantage funds, where predominantly we like a strategy called momentum, especially for playing the last run, or we can also use valuation based strategy. The idea is that if there are three conditions going in place, which is very high valuations and the earnings growth cycle is probably at its peak, and there are euphoric sentiment, which means all domestic investors are investing, foreign investors are investing, a lot of IPOs going, the past returns look like 20-25% plus, then we might want to be a little, while we know that it is very difficult to get this call right, but the whole idea is to sin a little, like can we take some risk off the table, while you will more or less 95% of the times you will continue with your asset allocation, but at some rare extremes at some point in time in the future, we will definitely ask you to reduce maybe 25% or 50% of your equity and move it to these balanced advantage fund category, which is exactly what we also did during the last session that we had. Now, how do we track this? What we essentially do is we track a set of close to around, this is our framework which we explained in our last video, which is also available in YouTube. We track a set of close to around 27 indicators for this. Now, whenever we find a lot of these indicators going on green, right now it's like out of 27, 16 indicators are in green, 3 in yellow. So this is something that we track on a regular basis. If at some point in time too many of them become red, then we might want to give you a call saying that can you come slightly reduce your, we understand that your asset allocation accounts for the fact that you can handle the declines, but this is a time when it looks like the probability of a 10-20% fall becoming larger seems to be higher. So we might want to reduce it to a small extent, not like we won't make it zero, but yeah, but we would obviously want to protect your money if we know that everything is going really if a lot of our indicators are putting red. This is something that we are consciously doing despite knowing that the odds are against us in terms of timing the market, because history tells us that a lot of people have got this wrong, but yeah, but we would definitely want to look at all the metrics. But the key point is that it will only be in extreme. So if let's say only one parameter is very high, we wouldn't go and panic, and then we wouldn't ask you to immediately come out of equity. So that precise timing is something that we won't attempt. But on a broader scale, if a lot of these metrics become right now, the good part is that the valuations, while are definitely high, we are at the bottom of the earnings growth cycle, which means the earnings growth environment is going to be like reasonably strong over the next 5 years, which is a positive. The sentiments are also so ideally when the sentiments become very scary is when IPO market goes for there are a lot of IPOs getting launched and a lot of money getting collected, and the FII flows are strong, and the domestic investors flows are also strong. Right now, the good part is that the FII flows are strong, the domestic investors are still not invested. So which means a lot of people have taken money out. So even if there is a fall, this money can always get in. So which means that the sentiment wise, we are not too worried. So out of three indicators, one indicator is worrisome, while second and third is like is second is very positive, third is like is midway, it's an yellow signal. So right now we are so unless and unless, as I told you, we will only take these calls in extremes because the ability to go wrong is very high. Now once you put all this in place, the sixth step is finally that you build in some time, give it a lot of time, and then you will have a phenomenal experience. While this is a very simple approach to investing, we have found that given the evidence of trying to predict and trying to time the markets each and every 3-4 months, we have seen that the experience of a lot of investors gets lost, because all it takes is one mistake to completely do away with 5 years, 6 years, 7 years of hard work. So our key request is that while it took me almost 7 years to realize that to predict the markets is very difficult. So some of you will get it, some of you might take some more time, but that's okay. But at least just keep this in mind that that a lot of people have got it wrong, and also ask yourself saying, why is it that I'm not seeing anybody with successful track record of exactly moving in? Why are these guys not popular? Because there's nobody. Why is HDFC AMC with 1,200 crores not able to do it? Why? They have all the money. So what is it that I have in addition with them where I can bring that extra aid? So overall, to sum it up, The idea is let's build the right expectation, which is that 10 to 20% decline is normal. So if at some point in time during the year this happens, this is perfectly normal. But can it be a large correction? Right now, our indicators are broadly, they are not indicating any a major bubble, because earnings growth is positive, sentiments is neutral, while your valuations are still high, and that's the only red signal that we are getting. But yeah, we're still not in a position to go underweight equities. So the temporary decline should be looked at as fees, and it's like Morgan Housel, a famous personal finance writer, says it's not a fine. So we think we've done something wrong that the markets are going down. Absolutely, that's the just like how we have to go to a gym to build our body, or work out to build a decent body. It's the fees that we have to pay. This volatility is the fees that we have to pay for higher return. Overall, our approach is simple. Stick with a very simple asset allocation. Please know your asset allocation number. Is equity 50 or equity 70 or equity 30, whatever suits you, and then rebalance it every year, and then diversify it using our 5-finger strategy, and then keep a market sale plan. This is very, very important, because whenever it corrects, it's a phenomenal opportunity. And 5, we have a framework where we are analyzing a lot of these metrics. So you don't need to do all the hard work. We will do the hard work for you. But again, as I told you, we will only take this call on extremes, because fundamentally equity is a growing asset class. So in a growing asset class, when you're going underweight, there's a lot of chance of going wrong, just as you saw all the large major investors going wrong. So we will want to be humble enough to accept that this is a decision where our odds of getting right is very, very low. But yeah, in extremes, we will definitely want to warn you, and then we will want to reduce your equity allocation. The 6th point is a simple philosophy that we have to put more time to it, because that is the only way to handle volatility. Because otherwise, to come out and come in is very, very, very difficult to do. And unfortunately, there's no evidence of anybody who has done it successfully and consistently over long run. Yeah, so that is that's broadly what I wanted to communicate for today. Thanks everyone.
Thank you, Arun, for this wonderful and informative session. So thank you everyone for participating in this session. It's been a pleasure to have you all with us. And any further questions related to your portfolio can be sent to advisor@fundsindia.com, and any service related queries can be sent to contact@fundsindia.com. And have a happy weekend. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks everyone.